Like all diagrams, this could mislead on one point while it makes other points clear. The mistake would be to infer from this classification of the physical and non-physical components of a human being that the parts which are here identified carry out their special functions quite independently of one another. This is in no case true. The union of all these components in the one human being is the most important fact indicated in this chart, and indeed, the more free and open the flow of energies between the various levels, the better a person is equipped for astral projection, as well as for other mind-body adventures. We know that there can be negative interactions. Unrelieved tension from emotional causes can produce stomach ulcers, while, in the other direction, eating something that upsets the liver can temporarily block the creative imagination. But these hazards can be avoided, and their possibility is more than compensated by the glorious rewards we can gain from the interaction of the levels within our being. A conscious intimacy with the higher self is not required for these purposes, but a happy confidence that it is there, and a healthy acknowledgement of the reality of high spiritual values will always help in maintaining our balance in life. It can be a reminder which will enable us to cut earthly cares down to size, and sometimes it can also convey a hint to the rational mind that the rule of intellectualism is not entitled to be absolute. Below the level of the higher self, however, the relationship between the rational mind, the emotional and instinctual mind, and the physical body needs to be cultivated so that communication between them remains as open as possible. We shall return to this subject with some practical action for you in Chapter 3. This intercommunication between the various levels of life within you has always been recognized by occultists as having great importance, and nowadays it is also the subject of much valuable medical research. It is being established scientifically how the mind can bring the body back to health and can keep it healthy, and also how the instinctual levels can be trained by the rational mind so as to control the physical body in special and unaccustomed ways, such as are needed by astronauts in space travel, for example. Having emphasized the necessity for interaction between the various parts indicated on our diagram, and value of encouraging and increasing that interaction, let us consider these parts separately. The usual outer vehicle of human consciousness is the physical body. It is part of the material world. It has weight, volume, dimensions. It is composed of the elements of the material world. It breathes the atmosphere of the material world. It is nourished upon material food. If we want to create outward expressions of our ideas, our physical hands, muscles, eyes, ears assist us to interpret the mind's plan in material terms. The mind is the artist, but the body handles tools and materials to produce a painting, a sculpture, a book, or something else which is also part of the material world. Even a musical composition, the most ethereal of artistic creations, is made up of a sequence of atmospheric vibrations produced by instruments of wood and metal in accordance with a complex series of lines and dots upon paper. Or if we had never learned to read or write, but made songs and sang them extempore like the minstrels of old, our songs would still be made up of vibrations of the air caused by the vocal organs of the physical body. In other words, if you want to create something in the material world, you use the fabric of the material world itself, and you work by means of your material body and senses. Now we come to consider the next level of existence, beyond the boundary of the material world. Here we have a more inner vehicle of consciousness, the Nefesh, to give it its Kabbalistic name. This is the whole of that area of the psyche which makes itself known through the instincts and emotions, forming a broad link between the physical body and the rational mind. As a vehicle of consciousness, it is often called the astral body or astrosomy. And just as the physical body is part of and functions in the material world, so the astral body is part of and functions in the astral world. It is not easy to give a short description of the astral world. just as the material world contains a wide range of phenomena, from matter as dense as or even denser than lead or granite to the delicate atmospheric wave vibrations of sound and color, so the astral world has near physical forces such as poltergeists, which can lift and hurl rocks, and also has high manifestations of beauty and tenderness, which most people would term spiritual. In fact, the contrasts are so great that the astral world is frequently thought of as being divided into two, the higher astral and the lower astral. However, as all the worlds to some extent flow into one another, it seems unnecessary for our purpose to analyze them as subdivisions. The astral world is a region of great power and fascination, with much that is inspiring and exciting, as well as beautiful and astonishing. The experienced astral traveler can do important things there, as an alternative to simply moving about in the material world. Our own astral bodies, which are part of that world, show a similar wide contrast in their different parts. Here too we can, if we wish, distinguish between the lower level, the gross astral or etheric, which meshes with the physical body, and the high emotional levels which are closely linked with the mental level of the psyche. Nevertheless, all these functions belong to the astral body. They can and should be directed, not persecuted, by the rational mind, and they are all part of your personal, astral potential. The mental level of the psyche is termed the mental body, or noamasomi, frequently called the mental sheath, because it is so much finer, more delicate, and more penetrating than the astrosomy. The noamasomi comprises all that which in the Kabbalistic system is understood by the ruach, the rational mind and the governing consciousness, which is aware not only of the rational mind but also to a variable extent of the sub-rational factors of emotion, instinct, and bodily sensation, and the decision-making function of the rational mind. You may already at some time have tested the interaction of these different levels. You may have been occupied in a quite ordinary pursuit, in a familiar situation when suddenly some message is conveyed to your brain, which has connotations of fear for you. Maybe the sound of gunfire or a smell of burning, or you may have been performing an unfamiliar or difficult task when an unforeseen complication arises, like crossing a chasm by an unsafe bridge. When suddenly another traveller steps onto the bridge at the far end, what do? Probably in any of these cases you send a swift message to your instinctual self, "Steady now." And why do you do this? You do it so that your physical body should not be moved to any clumsy or unconsidered action by that lower part of your astral body, which is engaged with the nerves, glands, and blood of the physical body, and so that the directing power remains with the rational mind, which formulates the dictates of the will. This is a direct and spontaneous example of reaffirming and strengthening the interaction between the levels, and too, of establishing the natural order in those levels. The will working through the rational mind, which controls the astral body, which acts through the physical body. Why wait for an alarming crisis to become aware of this interaction? It is going on all the time during your waking life. You will be given, in Chapter 3, a more magical practice for increasing the flow of energy through your whole personality. You can benefit more easily and quickly from the magical practice if you also give attention to the everyday activities which, although to a lesser degree, bring about the same kind of thing. It is a definite law of life, resulting from this close interaction between the levels, that a physical or astral manifestation in the personality to which attention is given will increase in quality or quantity. There are a few exceptions, as with any law. Trying to train the sense of smell is one, but for the great majority of phenomena it holds good, and it is the basic reason why we are told, practice makes perfect. But now let us look at another example from daily life. Supposing you sustain some small but inconvenient injury, such as a sprained ankle or a cut finger. It causes no continuous pain. You can forget it most of the time, but now and then when you try to make some accustomed movement, it stops you. with a sudden sharp reminder of its presence, what is your immediate reaction? Maybe you impulsively direct annoyance, frustration, anger to the already damaged area. That darn finger, much as if it were an inanimate obstacle in your way. You may not be doing much harm in this, but it is a waste of opportunity. The finger or ankle as a physical structure didn't anyway want to be injured. Some unconscious part of your astral level let this happen, from whatever motivation. This in itself is a sufficient signal to the rational mind to take charge particularly of that situation. So how about sending through the astral level, which means doing it by such things as visualization, emotion, the imagination of a current of warmth and so on, a good wish, a blessing, an image of healing to the site of an injury. If you do this, you will not only be doing some real good to your body, and the more practice you have, the better it will work, you will also be A, giving your will some practice in working through your rational mind, B, giving your rational mind some practice in working through your astral body, and C, giving your astral body some practice in working positively upon your physical body. This is good for all levels, collectively and separately. An important fact which shows up in this is that each level of the personality has to work through the one immediately above or below it.